Hi everyone, good morning. So today I have two friends here. This is...
Hi, I'm Teika.
And this is...
I'm Rosa.
Yes, and they're from United States. And today we are going to talk about some culture, American culture. Oke, selamat pagi. Hari ini saya dengan teman saya Teika dan Rosa. Mereka dari Amerika. Dan hari ini kita akan membahas tentang budaya di Amerika. Okay? Okay, so I have some questions for you too. Okay? The first one. Why do you think is interesting about your culture? Jadi pertanyaan pertama, apa sih yang mereka pikir menarik dari budaya mereka?
I think something interesting about American culture is the diversity. There can be diversity in American culture regionally. In the Northeast, there's a different culture than in the South of the United States or on the West Coast. There's different races too and different ethnic groups. So it's really hard to define American culture, but I think something really interesting is that there's so many different parts of it and so many different cultures.
Okay. And you, Rosa?
And I would agree with that. In the U.S., we like to consider ourselves a country of immigrants. So there are a lot of people from around the world who come to the U.S. and they bring their cultures with them. So there's a diversity of food and even languages spoken in the U.S. And I think that that's really beautiful, all these people coming together and sharing their cultures.
Okay. The next question. When people from other countries think about your culture, what do they usually think of?
I think people probably have some negative stereotypes about the U.S., like fast food and guns and patriotism, and they probably think of Hollywood, so what they see in the movies, which doesn't always show the diversity in the United States. So that's what I think that people think about the United States, but I don't actually know.
Okay. And you, Rosa?
Similar to Teika, those same things, and especially the patriotism element that people from the U.S. are very proud of being from the U.S. We love wearing red, white, and blue and waving our flags, which is true on the 4th of July, our Independence Day, but I don't know, there are different levels of patriotism there.
Okay. Okay. Next, in your culture, is it polite to be straightforward and direct when you talk to someone? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to translate. So, di kultur kalian sopan nggak kalau misalnya kalian ngomong langsung ke seseorang?
Okay. So I'm from Connecticut, which is near New York in the Northeast, and I consider being straightforward to be one of the most polite things you can do because it shows respect for people's time. So you're not wasting their time by being slow and polite because the pace of life is very quick. So I consider being straightforward and direct personally to be very polite. But I think it may be different in other parts of the country.
Okay, and is it applicable for all kind of ages?
I guess it depends on the setting more than the age. If it's a work setting or with friends, it's maybe more polite to be less direct, to figure out how they're doing instead of just getting to the point. So I don't know that it depends on age, but more if it's professional or social with friends or in an academic setting.
Okay.
But I don't know, Rosa may have a different answer.
I'm from the Southeast, where we tend to be a little bit more slower moving. We tend to be very polite, sometimes too polite, and I think we value being straightforward a little less than they do in the Northeast. And so that's something I personally am working on, being more direct and straightforward, because I see the benefits to it.
Yeah.
Saves time,
but it also, people understand what your expectations are. In the South, maybe we say, yes, I'm doing well. Well, not so well. Well, today's actually a really hard day. And then we start crying.
Oh, no.
No, not really. We're happy.
Oh, exaggerating.
But in the North, I think they'd be like,
Time is money.
time is
Like
money.
you're wasting their time. Time has a lot of value.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And where are you from?
I'm from the state of Virginia,
Virginia.
in the South.
Okay. Okay, next question. What don't you like about your culture? Apa sih yang kalian nggak suka dari budaya kalian?
What don't I like about my culture? Oh, good question. Sometimes it bothers me how people don't care, or like the average American doesn't think about the resources they're using and their consumption and the general consumerism that surrounds us in the United States, pressure to buy things, being materialistic. And I think in this day and age, with the climate problems we face, it would be better if people thought about others and weren't so individually minded about the resources they're using. So that bothers me. And I guess with the recent president-elect Donald Trump, it bothers me that there's so many people in the U.S. that could support a racist and sexist candidate for the presidency.
Okay. And you, Rosa?
Like we talked about, there's a lot of cultural richness in the U.S., a lot of different cultures contributing to what makes the country really beautiful, I think. But I think on the other side, sometimes patriotism and like traditions in the U.S. kind of get in the way, or people don't see the richness of cultures and they focus on kind of just
Self-interest.
self-interest.
Like, this job is for me. Like, I'm not thinking about this immigrant who doesn't speak the language as well, or who's new here, who is leaving some horrible situation to come to the U.S. And some Americans think, like, they're just taking my jobs. Like, that sort of attitude where it's very individually minded. Yeah, individualistic, consumerist, kind of based on money and acquiring wealth. I think it's nicer to have people that think about the society at large, or their families even, not just the individual. It's kind of an individualistic culture.
Okay.
That was very nicely put, Teika.
Thank
But
you,
it is
Teika.
that one side, the individualistic, more self-centered side,
Okay.
and where we could be celebrating communities more, it does happen there, but sometimes the individualism gets in the way of that.
Okay. The next question. Have you ever felt confused by the actions of someone from another culture? Wait. Pertanyaan berikutnya, pernah nggak sih kalian merasa bingung dengan tingkah laku seseorang dari budaya yang berbeda?
Yes, there are many times I felt confused by other cultures. For example, living in Brazil now, at first I was very confused by the pace of life. Like I said, because I'm from the Northeast of the United States, people tend to be direct and quick, and always moving forward, doing the next thing on their list of things to do, kind of business oriented. And here, for example, after our English classes, students want to just stand in a circle and talk for up to 30 minutes to an hour. And for me, this was very confusing. I said, why don't they have a sense of urgency? Why aren't they thinking about time or what they should be doing next? They just want to stand in a circle and chat. So for me, this was confusing. Another example of this is in the United States, when you get coffee normally, it comes in a plastic cup to go, and you drink your coffee walking to work, to wherever you're going next. And here, you get your coffee in a porcelain cup, and you just sit and you drink your coffee normally. So for me, I was like, why would people waste time sitting down drinking coffee? I'm used to walking and drinking my coffee. But I've come to appreciate the slower pace of life I found here. Although at first it was confusing and upsetting, and it made me anxious. But now I'm more accustomed to this.
Okay. I think I experienced the same. Okay.
Yeah.
How's that?
I think one thing that surprised me is like how there are just little cultural differences that you experience on your day to day that kind of make you realize that you are in a completely different place with different like norms that you didn't grow up around. For example, yesterday I went and got ice cream, and you pay here in Brazil. You pay at this one restaurant, especially. You pay before you order your ice cream, and I would have never thought to do that. I would have thought to order my ice cream and then pay. Or I have so many little examples of this, especially in restaurants. But they're just little things that change on the day to day. Teika, I'm sure, do you have any that you can think of?
Things that are confusing to outsiders.
I have one. Okay. One time I waited in the line for a bathroom for like, I don't know, I think I was there for like 15 minutes, and then I realized it was all men in the line, and that there was no line for the women's bathroom, which was like different. It was this outside bathroom, and I thought there was just one, and so I was just waiting with everyone, but it was the men's bathroom line, and I didn't realize that there was like a women's line for these porta potties, these outside toilets. So it's just little. I hadn't seen that before. So there's
the
little
hugging
things.
and the kissing. In Brazil, it's very common to hug people. When you see them, when you're leaving, you say goodbye to everyone with a hug. Normally, that was strange at first. For me, it felt like a lot of touching, which I'm not used to. I think there's more space. Like the cultural norm in the U.S. is to have more distance between people. So that was confusing at first and kind of uncomfortable. But how was it for you getting used to this?
I think the same like you. First time I arrived here and people are, they're hugging and then they kiss you on the cheek, both sides. It's kind of weird for me. In Indonesia we do that too, but not so much like here. So I guess we are on the same path.
We're used to just waving from afar. Hello.
No,
here it's like, wait.
Mwah.
Which is so nice, but it's just not something we're used to. Exactly. Goodbye.
Or handshakes.
Or
more
handshakes
common.
informal settings.
Okay. If you could change one thing about your culture, what would it be? Kalau kalian bisa ganti salah satu hal dari budaya kalian, apa sih yang kalian mau ganti?
Do you want to start?
I think one thing that's difficult is that there's a richness of foods in the U.S., but foods that are stereotypically from the U.S., hamburgers, hot dogs, French fries, that I don't eat every day, but that do get eaten a lot in the U.S., like, aren't very healthy. I think that we could eat much healthier foods in the U.S., less processed foods from big companies that, like, Teika has shown me a lot about the meat industry in the U.S., for example, but fruits and vegetables are kind of expensive there, and so that's not the first thing people think to eat. And it would be nicer if our culture embraced foods that were from the areas in which we live and a little bit healthier.
I think I would change the crazy, like, American work life. So people really believe in working long hours, hard hours. It's all about work. Now, I think our generation's finding more of a balance. But in Sweden, for example, they changed the work week to 35 hours because when people work less, they're generally more productive. So I think Americans should stop. I would like it if they stopped valuing, like, slaving away at a job for hours and hours. But that's a bad answer. I don't have a good one. I don't know what I would change.
It's good. Okay, next. What is considered rude in your culture? Apa sih yang bisa dikategorikan tidak sopan atau kasar di budaya kalian?
I think arriving late can be rude. If you are supposed to meet someone at a certain time and you show up even 5 or 10 minutes late, it's viewed generally as not very considerate of the person's time. That's one thing. I don't know. What would you say?
I think they're just little things that people think are impolite. Like, if you're opening a door and someone's walking behind you, you should hold the door open for that person.
It's very southern.
It's very southern.
I would
of me.
never consider that rude.
You don't do that there?
No.
It's regional too.
Uh-huh.
But I
Not
think-
responding to emails in 24 hours is considered
yeah.
rude.
Okay.
Just things like burping at the table or having bad manners at the table, like not eating as cleanly as you could. I think people think that's sort of rude.
Okay.
But we do eat like things with our hands, and that's not rude. Like we eat pizza with our hands and French fries
okay.
with our hands,
Okay.
and that's considered clean and common.
Because here they're eating
like-
pizza
with forks.
Uh-huh. Okay, next. This question is a little bit funny. If aliens visited your country, what might surprise them? Kalau ada alien yang mengunjungi negara kalian, kira-kira mereka bakal terkejut melihat apa?
I think the Super Bowl and like some of the American sports watching traditions would surprise aliens. Like, why are these Americans obsessed with commercials on television during the Super Bowl?
Oh, really?
People usually find commercials so annoying. Like, I just want to watch the game or the show. I hate these commercials. But during the Super Bowl, Americans love advertisements, which is strange. And I think people just like drinking alcohol in parking lots before sports games, painting their faces, you know, yelling aggressively at a television might seem strange to aliens.
But do you like Super Bowl?
I like watching the Super Bowl, yes, for the halftime show. Usually there's a good musician, like a singer, someone from pop culture like Beyonce or Katy Perry who sings and puts on a big performance. So that's really fun, and the advertisements are fun, but I don't really like football personally. I don't know the rules.
Okay. And what's that?
Well, food is always on my mind, so I think some of the foods that we eat would surprise people. And just going
Alien,
into
you mean?
aliens. Like macaroni and cheese, which is very orange, might surprise them because it's like cow's milk is white, and this is made from cow's milk. How does it get orange? Why do we want it to be orange? Or at the grocery store in the U.S., there's a whole aisle or row with just cereal.
Oh, wow.
I would say over 100 kinds of cereal.
My
Why-
university had 50 kinds of cereal.
Why so many options? I don't know. Or my grocery store for a while had an apple that tasted like a grape. It was called a grapple. And it had
Really?
like flavor.
Wow.
Have you seen a grape flavor on top of the apple. So it's just we experiment with some things that might surprise.
But is it natural?
No.
No? Oh, okay.
Not grapples.
That's why
Maybe one day.
I think they will be surprised.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The last question. How do you feel when you leave your home culture and enter into a completely new culture? Jadi pertanyaan yang terakhir, apa sih yang kalian rasain saat ninggalin negara kalian dan masuk ke negara yang benar-benar punya budaya berbeda?
I think you can feel alone and frustrated. Like, why are all these people doing a certain thing this way? And why aren't they doing it my way? Is sort of a common sentiment. Or just, how does it work? I don't understand anything. I'm frustrated and confused. I'm alone. I don't understand things. You can feel kind of sad and overwhelmed. But I think you definitely adapt in time. But I think it definitely is difficult, but you do become used to these things. You learn the cultural norms, and it slowly gets easier, but you can feel far away from your family, isolated.
I think you can feel really excited too at times, like, wow, the road looks so different here, or like going into the trees. I've never seen a tree like this. Or like you walk into the grocery store and you're like, wow, spaghetti sauce in a bag? I could never have imagined. It's always in a can. Or they don't sell beans in cans here. So that's really fun to see all these new things. But I think one thing that sometimes we don't realize is that it can also be really tiring and exhausting too, because your brain is constantly, not only are you sometimes interacting in a new language, but there are all these new stimuluses around you, stimuli, right? Stimuli around you. So I think your brain is constantly working, and sometimes you find yourself exhausted, and you're like, why am I so tired? But it's because you're taking in so much that's really new and different.
I see. Okay, so thank you for coming today and do this interview.
Yes. Good luck learning English.
Yeah.
Stick with it.
See, learning English can be fun. Okay?
And you learn about cultures too when you learn about languages.
Yes,
definitely.
that's true.
And you can make new friends, and it opens so many doors. Language.
Okay, so guys, I will see you in the next post. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.